Hello, beautiful, and welcome to Finding Fertility. I'm your host, Monica Cox from FindingFertility.co, and I created this podcast to help get you to start thinking outside of the box and realize that your infertility might have nothing to do with your lady bits. Rooted in functional medicine and personal experience, Finding Fertility is all about looking at the whole body and finding the root cause of your infertility. Finding Fertility does not diagnose, prescribe, or treat any issues of infertility, but what we do is take a holistic approach and improve your diet and your lifestyle to get you steps closer to creating your dream family. Just by being here with me, listening to this podcast, you're already going down the right path to making your dreams come true. Let's do this together. Happy Friday, all. Welcome back to another episode of Finding Fertility. I'm your host, Monica Cox, and I am completely honored that you are here embracing the woo-woo and the crazy and ready to dive into taking control and becoming the conscious mama bear you were born to be. Today, we have another podcast discovery episode. I was really excited to tap into this because, as you guys know, I offer free podcast discovery calls, and I had one of my old course subscribers wanting a podcast discovery call. So we dived into why she left the course early, thinking that she had it all, she knew it, but yet she was left with some questions and questioning herself and where she should go. And of course, we found some missing pieces. And I think it's just a true testament. I'm not sure if I say it enough, but the one-to-one coaching, not the one-to-one coaching package, but even the one-to-one you get with me in the community, whether it be on the live group coaching calls or asking your questions through email if you can't make the group coaching calls, or even asking your questions in the community where you can just type away and I type back to you. Sometimes I even make videos specifically for you guys if it's like a long-winded answer. It's just where the magic lies. That's just where it is. The course information is amazing, and I'm not gonna lie, you can find it on the internet. Like I am saying there's some stuff that I'm saying that probably not a lot of people are saying, but the way I put it together and the information that you get is designed from start to finish. And you just gotta be patient. I think this was like an obvious thing that was an issue for this beautiful person. And even when you think like, okay, I've got the answer that I need, you might need another 2 or 3 answers. And that's what I'm here to help you guys do. I'm really here to help you guys figure out where those missing pieces are, because like I said, like you can find all this information on the internet. It's just putting it together, and that's what the online group coaching does for you at a fraction of the cost of the one-to-one. So yeah, I'm going to stop tooting my own horn. And I know there's so much valuable information in this podcast episode, and I know it's going to help so many people go beyond their diagnosis and really start tapping into their intuition. And I'm super excited for this to be aired finally. So without further ado, let's get to today's episode. Like that's where the magic lies, right? The course is amazing, if I do say so myself.
I agree. I totally agree.
But getting that one-to-one like coaching and asking your personal questions is where like things progress. So I'm just wondering like how to get people more involved in that group coaching. Are they standoffish because they don't want to ask like personal questions in front of people, or timings?
Well, it was timing too, because I think that it was at 5 LA time, or Pacific Standard Time. And 3 days a week I'm commuting from Koreatown. And so I was like, I don't want to be in the car when this happens, but I definitely don't want to take this to the office because I want to, ask
Yeah.
personal intimate questions. I don't have my own office. So anyway, it was definitely, that was part of the factoring. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if it was maybe late, like 7 p.m., I know it's going to be different for everybody though. So how can you possibly accommodate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I try to like switch them up and like have some like early morning Hawaii and then late in the evening and just try to like hit the magic sweet spot. But yeah, like there's
Yeah.
just everyone's all over the world. So I'm just never gonna get a good time.
But
Um
I'm definitely open to, because I would love to get some more. I mean, that's why I'm here too, is to get some more. I have so many burning questions,
yeah,
and yeah. So, but yeah, so I'm definitely open to that.
yeah.
I'll do that in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, no, I'm always trying to like, what can I do to like, right? Because I can say it as much like it's the coaching is where the magic happens. And I'm trying to,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely make it affordable for people because not everyone can do the one-to-one coaching. And I don't have all the time in the world either.
Hmm.
But yeah, the group coaching is like a unique aspect because not a lot of like courses online offer that. But it's
Right.
definitely something that like once people understand like at the moment there's just like one girl that shows up and it's just like you get this free coaching like
Yeah.
right like
Ask away. Ask
you
all your
are
questions.
yeah like she's getting the deal of the century, which is great. I love, that's what I'm here for. But yeah, I'm glad that you like didn't sometimes like we get proud, right? And like, well, I've done it and I'm not going to ask for any more help. So like, I'm excited that, you didn't like put that mental block up and that you're here.
Oh no,
Um,
these are the questions that keep me up at night. It's like during the day I'm very confident. I'm like, I'm totally on the right path. I'm on the right journey. And then I go to sleep at night and I'm like, fuck, what if I have like a parasite? Or what if and all these like things that I
yeah,
see on, I follow a bunch of fertility dietitians now, and I'm like, oh my God, is that me? Do I have that issue too?
I
So
know. And
yeah.
that's the problem when you're doing it alone too, is that like you just like see all this information. And I think
Yeah.
hopefully for the most part, we're all trying to say the same thing. But I know that there can be some conflicting speak out there. And I was just saying that I was
Yeah.
just live on TikTok and I was just saying this because this one girl said that she had two doctors and one told them this and the other said the complete opposite. And I said, well, for everyone out there, right? No matter what your training is, a lot of it comes down to your opinion, the way you read the scientific studies, the way you feel about supplementation,
Hmm.
and I try not to do that because I know my experience was like, it was the opinions of those doctors. And it's whether or not I took those opinions that made the difference in my journey. Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, just give us a little like brief overview of like your fertility journey so far.
Okay. I made a timeline today because I was like, what has happened? So we started trying in November of 2018. We went to Chile to get pregnant. But I was on birth control from the time I started my period. I was a late bloomer, and because I did ballet, and I think I got my period when I was like 15, and it was horrible. I had horrible cramps. I had huge clots, and I was tiny. And my mom thought I had a miscarriage. I was like, I'm not even having sex yet. And that's when my aunt is also my doctor. She's an OBGYN. She's a DO. She's fantastic at delivering babies. Maybe, she's very much still a Western doctor. So she was like, we're going on birth control.
Mhm.
And of course it put a patch on all those symptoms. And then I was on birth control until I went off in 2018. And I was doing ovulation test kits, which were coming up positive. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely ovulating, but having very weak periods, like almost no fresh blood whatsoever. And that's maybe a few months after we had started trying and we weren't getting results, I started to listen to like my first fertility podcast, which was saying how horrible birth control is for your body, and that, you know, you can actually see ovaries that have withered. And I was like, that's it. I have withered ovaries. They have shriveled up, and that's why I have like no period right now. And that podcast actually made me, that was like 2019. I started cleaning up all my household products, my skincare, basically detoxing my life. And I think my periods may have started coming back a little bit, but still were like just very light, very faint. February 2019, I started acupuncture for fertility because that was recommended to me. And she started me on a supplement and herbs regimen. We started tracking my BBT, which was consistent. It was showing an ovulation like on the 17th every month. But she was also the first person that made me realize, like, you have anxiety that you need to deal with. I was like, what? I'm like, I went to law school. I'm an attorney. And I was like, I thrive in this environment. I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, you're clearly stressed out. Because I would go in there and I would be like sweating on the entire bed, like the sheets that she laid out for me, because I was so nervous from the needles, because she was putting them in my fingers. And it was very painful. She's like, well, it's not supposed to be painful, but it's because you're so stressed. I'm like, well, okay. So it ended up being more anxious for me to go get the fertility, I mean, the acupuncture. So after like maybe 6 or 7 months, I stopped. But I do feel like she set me up on probiotics, turmeric, B complex, a bunch of things for anxiety, magnesium, which I still take to this day. And vitamin D3 plus K2. And then let's see what else was happening. I started doing Orange Theory. My workouts got more intense because I was like, oh, this is physical exhaustion really helps me fall asleep at night. And that was probably a bad idea. 2020, we took a break because I was just over it at that point and pretty burnt out. But we were still having like sex 2 to 3 times a week, just not really, I wasn't doing BBT or taking urine tests or anything like that. And then COVID happened, and I started like an intense regimen of like making sure I was burning 500 calories a day since I was at home, and running 7 to 10 miles on the weekends. And I also am a huge wino. Like it's my passion. We travel for wine. I study wine. It's not necessarily about like being drunk. It's more about like the artistry of it. At least that's what I like to say. And then let's see, end of 2020, I started therapy for anxiety. Last year, after I had done therapy for a few months, because I was like, I have to get my head straight before I go into IUI, because I'm not going to have a doctor tell me that my IUI failed because I'm an anxious person. So I was like, I will manage my anxiety first. Then we started IUI. I got pregnant on the second time, which I was like, this is amazing. The statistics were right. He was like, this doctor was like 1 in 4. And, or I think it's like, yeah, 1 in 4 is your odds. And so I got pregnant on the second time, and I was like, yes. And I miscarried at 7.5 weeks. So that was terrible, but I was like, I am not going to deal with this. I will power on. And he said, you can start again as soon as you get your period. So that's what I did. And I think I did like 1 or 2. Yeah. 1 or 2 more IUIs when I started to feel like I was just throwing money away. And I asked this doctor specifically because I was having, not only was I not dealing with my trauma, but I was having a particularly rough time at work. And I asked this doctor, how much of this is a mental game? He was like, no, it's not. It's not at all. It's just about timing and you're going to be fine. And as he was like doing the IUI, I was like, this is not going to work. I just knew. I was like, my heart is not here. I'm so sad. And yeah, so that happened. Yeah, so, and then I was like, I got to take a break. And that's when I found this amazing therapist who has helped me. She helped me deal with my trauma, and she's also doing energy healing. She's like a bit foo-foo. Some people might feel like it's, crazy stuff, but it really has worked for me. And I've gotten into crystal healing, and then I saw some ads that you were posting, or not ads, but it was like hooks or something like, hey, has some Western doctor told you have unexplained infertility? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And I think you had recommended, like, have you thought about your thyroid? How's your gut health? And I've had gut health issues since I was, born. And it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. And then I asked you specifically, I would like to do a thyroid panel because my mom has Hashimoto's and her mom has Hashimoto's and her sister has a Hashimoto's. And sure enough, I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's and no doctor had ever fucking tested me for that. So I had to go in there with what you told me to test and request that panel. And that's how I found out that I Hashimoto's. And here I am, and I'm on the AIP diet and I feel better than ever. Like my anxiety has almost completely resolved itself with this diet, which is just mind blowing. I mean, it's just crazy. So, but I'm, just hoping that I'm still on this, that I'm on the right path. And because I feel like I've wasted so much goddamn time getting here. It's like, if I could have just known you existed 5 years ago, and I'm sure people tell you that all the time, but it's like 5 fucking years of going through this timeline today. Like, Jesus, that is just, like, what happened to 2020 is just gone, So that's, sorry, that was not brief at all, but that's
It's okay.
where I am.
No, it's a huge journey, right? And I don't think there's enough space for people who are going through this journey, enough space and support to say stop, right? To say that if you just stop and let's recalibrate everything, you're actually going to save yourself more time, heartache, and money, because we're not jumping into these things. And that's where the Western medicine is so wrong, right? Like, it's great that we have that support, but there's another podcast episode, a similar discovery call, and it was back to back to back to back to back. And these doctors are like, just keep going, just keep going.
Right.
And the heartbreaking thing is that it's the mental and emotional toll that your body is taking because of this advice.
Yeah.
And no one's recognizing that. And we're just getting, pushed through these things.
Yeah, and I was doing the medically induced ovulation, which is terrible for Hashimoto's,
Yeah.
So it's like every time I was doing that, it was probably progressively making things worse for my body. And I just want to go back to that doctor who was very nice and be like, that was terrible advice.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I think more women should, right? Like, just please, like, this is my information. I might just be, and you're not the only person. That's the shitty thing. They'd be like, well, that's just you. It's like, no. We're hearing these stories over and over and over again. So one, I want you to know that your time is not wasted.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you believe that everything happens for a reason or we have to go through these things, I know that, and we're probably saying that if someone told me these stuff at the beginning of my journey, I wouldn't have listened anyways.
That's probably true.
So sometimes we have to go through these things because it's just in our genetic makeup that we have to experience it. And because we've experienced it, then we're like, okay, I get it. So your time is not wasted. My journey was really long too before holding my first baby. 8 years before I got pregnant naturally. So I know that it is a huge chunk of time. And I always say, if I had me, I would have saved myself minimum 6 years, if not more. But I know that I had to go through everything to get to where I am and start reconnecting with myself. right? Start trusting
Yeah.
myself that how I felt during those moments. And even though the professional or the expert was saying, no, that's not true, you knew, your body was telling you like, no, this isn't my truth. It might be true for the next woman that's coming into the room, but right now this is not me. And we've been so disconnected from that. And these are just ways for you to validate your knowing, your intuition.
Yeah.
So where are you with your Hashimoto's diagnosis right now?
So I was actually kind of hoping to chat with you about that because I was thinking about going back in to test again. Let's see. I think it's actually really weird because I started the AIP diet, I think June 1st. And I think I had my diagnosis like a week or two later.
Okay.
And I was like, well, that's great because I'm already doing this AIP diet. So I don't know how long it takes to reduce my antibodies, but I have, cut back on my workouts. So I'm really just doing like very mellow stuff now,
Yeah.
strength training and walking and yoga. And I'm doing red light therapy. So yeah, I was thinking, is 2 months enough, like to go test to make sure that the numbers are going down?
Yeah, I mean, you could test whenever, really. There's no time allotment for enough, right?
Yeah.
Like you're on your own journey. There's no comparison. The AIP diet, as you've already felt, will give you dramatic results very quickly because it's such a limited diet that the inflammation is going to be a huge factor. Other than your so with your gut health, what improvements have you seen, and do you feel like you still have any issues, even if they're like minute?
Sure. So I believe they are working because I am able to fall asleep pretty quickly now. I mean, I'm still having to do I do this like sleeping meditation thing at night. But now I'm not like staying awake to the end of it, which is amazing. Um, and as one fertility dietitian said, I'm shitting like a champ. So there's regularity happening. That's great. And I do still like, so last week, I don't know why I thought that I could have or reintroduce seeds. So I was trying to do flax because I did it so much before. Like I was having a smoothie, like during quarantine, I had a smoothie every day with flax because I know it's supposed to be so good for fertility. And it is just not working for me. It does not work for my body. But unfortunately, when you talk about, or anybody talks about reintroduction after AIP, it's like, check 45 minutes or you should see some sort of reaction. And it wasn't immediate because I put it in these like spinach muffins, and I had to have it for like 3 mornings in a row to realize that my stomach was bloating.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that could have been it. Honestly, it was the only thing that I had done differently. So it's like, okay, that's out. But it felt like it took a long time for my body to stabilize. Like today's the first day where I feel like that bloating is gone away. Which I was like, now I have anxiety about that because like, okay, I'm bloated, so I just ruined my chances of pregnancy this month.
So you've done the formula. You only did the first 8 weeks of it. I don't know if you were paying monthly, so I don't know if the end.
Yeah, I was doing monthly.
Yeah, the end would open up for you. So there's 2 more weeks, and I'm pretty sure the supplement is in the 9th week. So my question would be, have you done a targeted gut lining, like 3-month supplementation regime?
No.
Okay, so that's probably a missing piece for you. Okay, so when it comes to gut health, the first step is elimination, right? We have to eliminate the food and the toxins that are creating the inflammation. But because you've been dealing with gut health issues since the moment you were born, you're going to need targeted supplementation to amplify that healing phase. And so that's all within the course as well. There's like a whole section if you're having gut health issues of what supplementation you should take to target that that lining. Because like just in my own journey, for example, like I went paleo and saw like crazy improvements, right? Like you could almost not fault my gut health. But in hindsight, looking back, I noticed I see a little few things, but I wasn't thinking they were a big issue because I made all these improvements. But when after that second failed IVF and I did the immune testing, and that's when I exposed I had the high natural killer cells, I was on paleo for a whole year and still had natural killer cells. One, because I was still eating foods that I was highly intolerant to, like the tomatoes, paprika, and all that. But two, because my gut health lining hadn't gotten to the point where the junctions closed up, they got back to their natural state and was keeping the food particles inside my body. So that's what's happening with leaky gut, is that the food that's going, so even if you're on the perfect diet and you still have this leaky gut, the food particles are going into your bloodstream, like your immune system's like, attack, this isn't supposed to be here. And it's causing that inflammation and especially attacking your thyroid. Now, with the little information that I have here, usually, I mean, it's obvious to see, but you're probably a case of thyroid with three whacks. One, you're genetically prone, your gut health, and your mental and emotional health. So that is just like a shitstorm for early Hashimoto's, right? So depending on where you are with your Hashimoto's, it's all completely reversible, but you now have to maintain a certain diet and lifestyle to not have Hashimoto's come back, right? And lower those antibodies. My eldest is going to be 7 at the end of December. So I've been AIP for over 8 years. I still have to eat AIP, right? The moment I dive into especially tomatoes and paprika, which is like heartbreaking. But if I drink too much wine, if I drink too much alcohol, and this is like talking, I'm not like, I haven't drunk since April 1st now, but before that, I couldn't even drink the way I used to drink, and I didn't want to, but even just 1 or 2 affects your gut microbiome. So when you're in the healing stage, it's not going to derail you. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, you're not going to get pregnant this round, but it just keeps you from maximizing your situation, right? In that healing phase. And then like in my instance, and for most people with autoimmune issues, they have to maintain that certain lifestyle. Your periods, your PMS, and your gut health and your brain fog, they will be your first warning signs that you've overdone it, right? Because like after your healing, like my gut health after my first pregnancy was like, and that's how I got pregnant naturally, right? Like I had reversed the whole thing. You tap into 2 years after my second kid was born, the stress, started drinking again. I moved back to America, so Mexican food was more readily available, and it was hard not to eat corn and tomatoes and stuff. And all of a sudden, here I am back with the same issues, normal and common health issues that I was having when I was trying to get pregnant. So in your case, you have some pieces of the puzzle, but that gut healing line, like healing the gut lining, is like crucial for you right now.
Okay.
And that's why you're experiencing like having one thing of flaxseed is you'll notice it because your gut health is still low.
So you think it could be resolved with supplementation? I don't need to do like, there's, I don't know what it's called, the poo test. That's, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So within the course, you have access to a gut microbiome test that you just order online. You do it at home. That test is hands down one of the best tests that you can take. because it not only will help you rule out any parasites, because we can't guess about those, right?
Yeah.
But what it does is it shows you what you're actually your species, your microbiome species, what you're actually low in. So this is the problem a lot of people get. They're like, well, I'm on a probiotic. And it's like, well, have you been on the same probiotic for 6 months? Because you're literally taking the same strands. Maybe you don't need those strands. Maybe you need a different strand. And that's why in the course, I give you 3 different types. And especially if you're having gut issues, we're really going in with 3 different types of probiotics to maximize. Because what else that gut health does is it shows you where you're deficient in different gut functions. And it gives you a list of specific foods to help increase that. So you're not relying. So when we do supplementation, we want to target for 3 months, right? We just want to like give this huge boost. We want to go in hard. But after that 3 months, like it's expensive to stay on those supplements, and it shouldn't be needed. So we want to maintain that health with the right support with our food. And then after that phase is when you want to start reintroducing, because if you don't have to stay like, so I eat eggs, I eat nuts, I figured out like what works for me and what doesn't work for me in an autoimmune paleo diet, because you don't want to be restricted on that stuff for your rest of your life, because it is limited. If you don't have to, some people have to, some people don't.
I wanted to ask you about this too, that I did I think you're not a proponent of the Everlywell food testing, but I had done that before any of this, right? I did it several months ago, and it said that I obviously was intolerant to cow's milk, and no surprise there. But then it also said mildly reactive to chicken, and that was it. But then after I had started, I don't know, I was reading something of yours, and you were like, you have to be eating those things for it to show up. So that's why I was like, okay, well, that's why soy didn't show up, or legumes or lentils, those kinds of crazy things that I just have avoided. So because I had done that test, when I eat almonds and eggs every single day, I never cut those out.
Okay.
So, and I felt pretty confident that, yeah, like I said, because I had been eating those every single day, it's just part of my my regimen, that I was okay not eliminating those.
Yeah.
I was hoping for you to say that's okay.
Well, I mean, it's okay if you feel good on them, right? So for me, I never got a food sensitivity test. The MRT wasn't available in the UK when I was going on in my journey. So when I went AIP, I don't know if I put it in the course. I thought I did about the eggs. I know there's a link somewhere, but obviously I talk a lot about the paleo mom. She was doing a blog. She she radically changed my life with her knowledge. And she talked about eggs. The egg white is actually what people are more intolerant to in the AIP diet than the yolk. And so the egg white is the protein, and then the yolk is like it's got all the good stuff. So I used to actually boil my eggs and cut away the egg white and not eat the egg white, and then just have the yolk in my vegetables, that shit's dry, right? Like you gotta get a little. So there's that. You could play around with that if you're and just you can even just see, like, does it make a difference for 2 weeks? Can I notice anything? The other thing that I would say about that too, which is this is where the frustrating thing comes with healing, is that when you dramatically reduce a lot of the food you're intolerant to, and say like egg is an intolerance, whether it be a moderate, obviously it's not a high reactive. I think you would know if it was. It's like getting a little, like, it's like picking your scab, right? It's like your scab's always going to heal. No matter how much you pick your scab, it will eventually heal. It's just going to take longer for it to heal. So if you are eating moderately inflammatory foods, just consciously know that it's just might take a little bit longer for that healing phase. And that's why when I run the MRT test for anyone in the course of the one-to-one clients, it shows you moderate or highly reactive. And sometimes the highly reactive, they're just like, I didn't even know that. Like, I eat that all the time and I didn't know I was intolerant to that. And it's really because you reduce so much inflammation going on, your body can kind of handle that, like one slap in the face, right? Where before you were probably like getting punched, you know, like you were in the boxing ring. So, but I know you kind of mentioned like some maybe some mental and emotional issues around food. And so where, like, just talk a little bit about that.
I guess just now having this knowledge that the goal is to reduce inflammation, that, you know, before all of this started, I was just so used to, I mean, I would literally eat flax and like get bloated, and I was just like, oh, it's just me.
Yeah.
And now I know that I'm supposed to be avoiding that. So when it does happen, it's more of like a, like I was saying, like, damn it, that means, you know, I've just ruined my chances of getting pregnant this month, or I'm, you know, just prolonging this whole healing journey. So, and I have not touched beans. Like, I'm very sure that a Mexican bean dip ruined my pregnancy last time because it had cheese and beans, and I don't know what I was thinking. And I had like a bean and cheese burrito, and I had severe cramps that night. And looking back on it, I'm like, why did I think, like, I was such a healthy eater, but when I got pregnant, I was like, oh, you get more latitude when you're pregnant, which is so silly. That is so silly. Like, you should be optimizing your nutrition when you're pregnant. And that's not that I was eating terribly. It was just like, oh, I'm out at a Mexican restaurant, so I'm going to have a bean cheese. So it's beans that are bad, cheese that's bad for me, and wrapped in gluten. I don't know what I was thinking. But so now it's just, I just really have no interest in touching legumes. And I guess I'm just afraid of certain foods and their triggering responses.
Yeah, so this is a really, really important, and I know I dealt with the same issue. I was over the 3-month mark with my IVF baby that I used immune suppressing drugs, and I still needed them, right? I had not healed my gut at that stage. And I went to a restaurant. It was like, it's so hard to order out on AIP. And there was this burger, and I didn't realize, it didn't say it had paprika in the burger mix. So like, paprika is so easy to see, right? And because I was out with friends, and her family was like, her dad was paying, and I was just embarrassed about my ordering anyways, like a bun and like a lettuce came out, right? Like, I couldn't have the French fries, the tomatoes, or not the bun, the patty. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. So I ate it. And literally for like the next 2 days, I thought I was going to have a miscarriage because I didn't have that support. That's not how the body works, right? When something like a miscarriage happens, it's not one event that stems it for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with an autoimmune issue. It's the many, many, many events that has happened over the decades that contributes to that. So when you either choose to have something that you know you're not, or you accidentally have it, and maybe something that you don't want to happen happens, just know that it wasn't that one event, right? It was just still, your body was just still not at the point to maintain. So if you are now diagnosed with Hashimoto's, we know your antibodies are super elevated. So probably what happened with the IUI twofold is, one, the egg quality might have not been where it needed to be because of all the inflammation and oxidative stress, but also you might have an immune issue where it rejected that pregnancy, right? So I don't know if you know this, but embryo is deemed a foreign agent in your body, but the way the universe made us, your body knows that that's okay. That foreign entity is okay. Don't attack it. So when your body's on overdrive, your immune system starts attacking your thyroid. It knows innately not to do that. But when it's so elevated, it's just like, we got to do something. So that's what we're going to do. And it's the same with embryos. And that's why it's the 12-week mark has become such a thing, is because that's when your placenta takes over. And so your body's not actually taking care of it. The placenta is now. And so your chances are much lower that your body's going to reject the fetus.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna be doing a lot of therapy when I get pregnant those first 12 weeks.
Yeah. It's it's no joke. I mean, I know you're joking
Scary.
about it, but this is
I'm
why you have
serious too.
this is why you have the time now to get mentally and emotionally prepared for that. Okay, because you're going to have tools in your tool belt that, because those issues aren't going to go away. Those anxieties do not leave you, but you have tools to deal with them in, I don't want to say a quicker manner, but like, say, if you weren't practicing this, it would like constant 12 weeks of just this crazy ass stress, right? Which, if you've read Origins, she has a study in there that stress levels absolutely can impact the baby's health. So instead of that, you're just going to have like once or twice a week these elevated like flurries, and then you can bring yourself down. So you're going to keep your stress levels way lower with all the things that you're putting into place now. And we won't get into it obviously, because it's a podcast discovery call. And also when I do these privately, I always say you don't have to say what you don't want to say. But being a ballerina is no joke. The mental and emotional on that, especially when they say you're a late bloomer and get your period at 15, that was absolutely not late blooming. That was the pressures of your body just not being able to express it. And then, the years of masking it with the birth control, and then probably how your mind formed of performing at, a certain level has absolutely, like, your acupuncturist probably didn't put it in the nicest way, but absolutely right. You moved on. And because you thought that was normal your whole life and you didn't know any other way, you wouldn't have saw it yourself.
Right.
So
for sure.
I know, you've mentioned you are tapping into those things, and that's where you have to go, right? Like your fertility will fall into place when you tackle those mental and emotional and those physical aspects within your brain, within your thyroid, and within your gut. And even when say like, oh, I want to get my thyroid tested, that's really important information to know. But a thyroid is a snapshot in time, and it's of your past, not of your future. And so with the thyroid test, like, great, we know that information, but I still got to figure out from a coach side, well, where's that inflammation coming from? Because the thyroid just doesn't do that on its own. It's a mental, emotional issue, or it's a gut health issue, or both. And then obviously the genetically prone. But it's really looking back. And I know you saw that in the course. There's a whole, class on traumatic events, whether you think they're traumatic, deemed to society telling you, well, these are traumatic and this isn't. Well, no, like, everyone experiences trauma in their own way. And like, that was something that I got really hung up on too, is that I didn't have these big life traumatic events that are deemed to mess up your brain and all that kind of stuff. But when you get into it, I was just like, wow, there was events in my life that really changed the way my brain was functioning, the way my parents brought me up, the food I was eating. Like, this all contributed to me, like, literally being infertile at 17. Like, I'm convinced of it. Just keep tapping into that stuff, because that's where you're going to fix things, right? You
Yeah.
can't hyper focus on your egg quality because your egg quality is due to the inflammation and the oxidative stress.
Right. Yeah. And the egg quality thing just trips me up too, because it's like I keep going back to like my doctor I've been to, or my aunt, and then I had a different doctor when I lived in Long Beach, and they would just like show me my eggs because they would do an ultrasound and be like, God, your eggs are just so beautiful and fluffy and like just so round and large. And so I just kept thinking like the egg quality's there, but where the hell is the disconnect? It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just
Well, them looking at that, they can't say that your egg quality is good. Like even
right.
embryologists, like, I mean, maybe the technology is a little bit better now, but without going in and testing those embryos, it's really hard. They can grade them and they can see bad to good, right? But even like the good ones that are sent off to testing, you don't know. You can't
Mm,
look at it that way.
yeah. That's yeah.
To my knowledge, maybe they can, but that's a new one to me. I don't think they can do an ultrasound and be like, oh, your egg quality is good. Yeah, your follicles might look good.
Mm,
You might have eggs there, but to my knowledge, the only way you can really truly test egg quality is getting them outside of the uterus and putting them
mm,
together with sperm and seeing what the embryo quality is like.
mm.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just now I've like lost all my faith in Western medicine. Every time I go to a party now, I'm like, hey, let me talk to you about gut health.
Yes, I know that all too well. And just know that this is your own journey, right? Like you don't
Mhm.
have to prove anything to anyone. Is that me or you?
I think that was on your
That
end.
was me. That was really loud. And try not to compare yourself to anyone as well, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the hard part because you look really fit. You sound like you've always been athletic and all those things. And we've deemed our outside appearance more important than our inside appearance,
Mhm.
right? So unfortunately, we can't go in there and have a look at everything. We can do the testing and things like that. That's our best guess. But yeah, and that's why so many doctors get hung up. People like me and you walk in and are fine,
Yeah.
and yet there's so many issues inside that are contributing to our issue. But yeah, so just keep going with that mental and emotional health, release the
Mhm.
trauma. I don't know how long ago you left the course, but I know I've introduced some like body exercises to help release trauma, like in the hips and like screaming it out and like different modalities than just talk therapy. And like it sounds like you've got one that's on the woo-woo side too. So that energy
Yeah.
healing is really good. But yeah, really tap into like breath work, movement, and vocal. So I'll actually send you the link. It's not gonna, a lot of my podcasts are recorded very early or well in advance. And so I talk with a vocal cord coach about the importance of the vocal cords and how, I mean, she doesn't have a medical study about how it's related to the physical elements that we're getting. But I think for a lot of us women who grew up in the 80s and 90s, we were just suppressed. We were told to be tough. We were told not to have an opinion. We didn't get to use our voice. And we were just, people pleasers and, overachievers. And I think a lot of this like manifests in our throat area and can contribute to the thyroid issues.
Mm.
So definitely keep going with that. Do you find your job still pretty stressful?
It kind of ebbs and flows. I work for a developer, so it's construction related. So it ebbs and flows with where we are in the project. But right now it's fine. I commute to Koreatown, which is like an hour and a half sometimes to 2 hours. So I think the commute is definitely worse. But that's all part of my anxiety management too. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, come home and I have to like journal sometimes, let that shit go. And because I unfortunately need the job.
Yeah. 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 It's when you can't quit your job, it's all about managing it and finding those tools that you can tap into, for sure. And then, yeah, it's just the targeted approach with healing the lining. I mean, that's definitely
Okay.
super key for your journey. Um, and in regards of using the gut health test, it really just depends on how much time you want to invest. Like if you're over it, I would test tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I can do the supplementation and see how it works for 3 months. And then if I'm still not seeing the results that I want, then I'll dig a little bit deeper. You know, it's really just how you want to play it out.
Okay.
And obviously like financial commitments and stuff like that. So it's all doable. But yeah, I mean, I see the most kind of success for people who have the testing and have that kind of backing for things that no one can guess, right? Like sometimes you just need the testing and then just getting on that right path, filling in those little holes. And yeah, using it like, you're part of the course. Like I never got to like, really connect with you. And as you can see, this is where the magic lies, right? Having
Yeah.
your questions answered and just going, okay, well, you haven't done that. That's crucial to your journey. Yeah, it's really important and can just save you a lot of time.
Definitely. Do you know if I like hit or like renew or something, will it just start me off where I left off? You have any idea how that works?
You could try.
Okay.
And just let me know what happens. If it
Okay.
doesn't, I can give you a discount code. The only thing is like when you pay the monthly fee, it opens it slowly, but I kind of have a
Yeah.
feeling that if you open it again, it will start you from
Where I
where
left
you
off.
were. Yeah.
Okay.
But just have a go, have a play with it, and then obviously just reach out. We'll work something out and get you back in. Um, Obviously with these discovery calls that I do, I give you as much information that I can that won't me be guessing, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes like I'm so limited, but I've got a lot of good information. And then yeah, it's just coming back in and utilizing for me, utilizing the community and just like, I should send out an email and just be like, for all who want to join, what time and date works for you?
Well, hopefully that doesn't backfire for you.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, I mean, that's the mission, is just to really get everyone, because it doesn't have to be complicated, right? You just need that extra set of eyes that has the experience to go this, and this, or, oh, you're missing that. Or, yeah, your doctor said that. Don't believe it.
right.
Do what he says, but you don't have to believe it.
Yeah. I also heard recently on some podcast this I think it was a fertility dietitian, and she said I usually recommend that women go off of over the counter allergy medication because it dries up cervical mucus. And I was just like like I've been on Zyrtec since it was invented,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, what? And that's another thing that no doctor would ever know or tell you. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you found that and that's something that you recommend too, but that just absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah. I mean, any over-the-counter medication, even like ibuprofen or like baby aspirin, if you're long-term using those, absolutely they're having an impact somewhere.
Yeah.
They're meant, drugs don't just target one area, right? So when you take a headache medicine, it doesn't just go to your head. Your whole body gets that effect, right? When you're taking, like for me, when I was on the steroids, right? Like, yeah, that was suppressing my immune system, but it was actually also fucking my gut, right? So there's yin and yang with these medicines. Like, yes, it's going to relieve symptoms, but at what cost? What else is
Right.
it impacting. So if it's not something, I mean, obviously, if it's doctor prescribed, you need to talk to your doctor about it. And actually, I just saw a TikTok. You guys know I love my TikTok. And this woman was talking about how she was on allergy medication and it was doctor prescribed for a really long time. And then she started getting all these issues, and then they prescribed antidepressants. And then
Oh
she
my
like
God.
went through this whole thing for like 5 years. And then she started researching herself what the side effects were. And now she's actually, there's an actual symptom where you have withdrawals from
I had
allergy
a week
medicines.
of withdrawals. I had burny, itchy skin
Yeah,
and
exactly.
insomnia.
Yes. Yeah, she was saying the same thing, that her skin was insane. And that's
I
withdrawals.
thought I was gonna, and I was like itching like
Mhm.
like a person in withdrawals from
Yeah.
crazy drugs. And I was just like, this is so crazy that this has affected my system so drastically. And I
Yeah.
thought I was gonna have to check myself into somewhere. Like, I am not okay right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all those things that are deemed normal, right? I'm not saying don't use them. I'm not saying that they are the reason, but when you're having big issues like this, it's usually just not one thing. And you got to be, one of the girls, when I did the course live, she had a diagnosed medical condition that she needed baby aspirin. She had a blood clot issue. And we did an MRT test, and the MRT does some of the chemicals as well. So it's not just food. And she was allergic to aspirin.
Oh my God.
So even though she needed this drug to support her in ways, so I just said to her, like, during your healing phase, during when you're not trying to get pregnant, don't take it. Even though I know it's so hard in the back of your mind, especially when you're trying naturally, like, well, I'll never get pregnant naturally if I don't take this. So if I don't take it, and it's just like, look, you have to take a breath, step back. Let's, reverse all these things first, then use the medication that you need. That can be very damaging. I mean, the big thing with the immune suppressing drugs, when people use them alongside IVF, and I get people all the time going like, oh, what drugs did you use? I'm just trying to get my doctor to prescribe them so I can use them. I'm like, look, a lot of doctors, one, don't believe this, which is messed up, but also don't want to use those immune suppressing drugs because there's zero research to side effects to the fetus and to the mother.
Mhm.
And you have to use them for over 3 months. You got to use them. You got to prepare your body before implantation, and then you have to use them up to 12 weeks. So, and they mess you up like big time. So it is that yin and yang thing. And the only thing you can do when you're using medication is support your system to the best of your ability by lowering the inflammation and oxidative stress that you can control.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're on the right
Control is a
track.
big thing. Yeah. Like, I just have to focus on what I can control and let go of what I can't.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, the diet side, especially for type A people, like, easy, right? Like, there's a little bit niggly, it gets annoying sometimes, but like, you're in control, right? You're in control of those supplements, those diet, easy. It's the mental and emotional. That is the hardest part, to sit with yourself and get real and face those uncomfortable times. And sometimes you didn't even realize they were there. Like, suck, that did fuck my shit up. I didn't even think that was a thing. Okay. So it's just having grace with yourself, and know that it's doable, right?
Yep.
It is doable.
Just got to be patient. That is not one of my virtues.
Yeah. Patience, surrendering. I think, like I said, I don't know, when you left the course, there's a whole, I always am improving the course. I'm always like, oh yeah, gotta get this, gotta get that. But there's a whole thing now on surrender, and how it's incredibly important, and receiving, right? Like, a lot of us have been givers, and we give and give and give and give. And it's hard for us to ask for that help and that support. And that's a big thing too. Because I'm telling you right now in motherhood, you're going to need it. Right.
Right.
So learning all these things before your children come along is going to impact your pregnancy in a positive way, your birth in a positive way, your postpartum in a positive way, and you're going to be a better mom, right? You're not going to be so uptight and controlling and pass on those generational traumas that your parents didn't know they were passing on to you. And, you could just, be the mom that you were actually born to be instead of just like repeating the cycle.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else that you wanted to ask me before we go?
I don't think so. I think we, yeah. So I guess just, I'm going to definitely start taking that course again, and, targeted supplementation for my gut health. And I guess maybe I can retest my thyroid panel next month just to see if they're going down, see if they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just remember, before you take your thyroid test, make sure you're just like zen. Like, because I've seen thyroid tests that were worse than when they first started. I'm like, well, what was your week like? And they're like, oh, super stressful. I'm like, it's a snapshot in time. This is what we have to get through our heads with these blood tests. It's that moment that is showing you probably like 4 or 5 days, because it goes like this. Your body doesn't stay the same. So if you want a true representation, try to like book it on a week where you're not like on holiday, but you're not like having your worst week ever. You know what I mean?
Okay. That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so glad that you reached out and we got to do this discovery call. Thank you so much for your time. And I know this is going to help so many people listening. And I'm excited for you. I don't think you're far off. I think you're totally on the right track, and you just need those little holes filled and patience. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
If you feel called to discover what you personally need to do and are ready to have an intimate conversation, please go down to the show notes. There's a link there that you can book your own personal discovery call. Also, for your chance to book your own podcast discovery call, I do send out an email to my email subscribers every 2 months looking for new guests. So if you're not already on the email list, I highly suggest you sign up today. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Finding Fertility podcast. If you're loving this podcast, please leave us a rating and review and let us know how this podcast is supporting you to get steps closer to creating your dream family. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and we will see you next Friday for another episode of the Finding Fertility podcast.